Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good day or night wherever you might be. I'm putting this post up with a bit of a delay because my voice was gone. It's back now, so hello. Um, I also have a bit of background noise going on, so I'm sorry about that if that's bothering you. So, I'd just like to tell you that my family and I have moved to Turkey. It's been a year now. We've started our second year, and one of the questions that we keep getting is why did you move from Canada to Turkey? Or why did you leave Canada? Now, to give that question a fair answer, one would have to talk a little bit about life in Canada, and also you'd have to talk a little bit about life in Turkey. You'd have to talk about the positives and the negatives of both. And this would take a while, definitely. So, because I'm hoping to keep these episodes relatively short, I'm probably going to have to divide them up into segments. Now, the past few days, I've been trying to categorize my thoughts into these compartments. It's not very easy, and when I start talking, I may have to sort of overlap between topics because it's not very easy to separate them. Uh, but I will start talking about life in Canada a little bit. I'll try and talk about the positives and negatives sort of together. And sometimes when you're talking about a point, it's not necessarily a positive or a negative, it's just a fact. I'd also like you to keep in mind that the stuff I'm telling you is my experience and my comments and my personal opinions. Other people may have other opinions. Please do not take anyone's opinions to be divine writ. It's not the final decision on any topic. Also remember that even though I'm talking about these in English, I I was born in Iran. I am Iranian, and a lot of the people who do ask me these questions are Iranian. So even though stuff like this might be useful and will be useful for people who do want extra information or just references to a life in Canada, uh, what you will hear throughout the future episodes are accounts of an immigrant living in Canada or accounts of an immigrant living in Turkey and accounts of an Iranian person living in Turkey, an Iranian person living in Canada. Other people from other cultures and people who have experiences with other languages will look at these issues differently. Now, the first positive I could think of when I was taking notes on Canada and living in Canada was how massive this country is. Canada's huge. Again, looking at it as an Iranian, Canada is about 6 times larger than Iran, and the population is less than half, 30 something million, compared to 80 something million. Now, I always say if you're an Iranian, for example, it doesn't matter which city you live in, imagine a main square or a famous landmark building that is usually very busy with hustle and bustle. Imagine that location in your city and then stretch it in your head. Imagine, stretch it and make it 6 times bigger, and then cut the population in half. Cut the number of people you see there in half. That's how quiet Canada is, basically, if you look at it from above, if you imagine it from above. When you have a country that's that large, and the population is so low compared to many other countries, that means you got a lot more resources that can be allocated to each individual. That's one of the positives of this country. This country is the country of Canada is full of national parks and lakes and mountains and ski resorts and just these jungles, lush green. It is a magnificent place. It's a magnificent place to live in, to go and visit as a tourist. And doesn't matter what type of person you are, whether you're a person who enjoys, mountains, lakes, cities, movies, restaurants, anything that you might like to do, you can find in that country. It's a country you can be proud of. It has a flag that you can proudly wear. It has sports teams and athletes and scientists and astronauts and artists and singers, and they're all people that you can be proud of. You can call yourself a Canadian, and you can really, really be happy with the whole image of being a Canadian. And it goes without saying that I've sort of it's a huge summary of what Canada is and what being a Canadian means. You do eventually end up thinking to yourself, God, I'm really glad that I experienced that, and I was able to sort of fit myself into a new country, and the country accepts you with open arms in many ways, not in all the ways, which I'll talk about. Now, what this means, though, is that when you have such a large country, the infrastructure has to be stretched thin. You got roads and railways and, airplanes that have to fly halfway across a continent just to get from one city to the next. And water and gas and amenities that have to be carried far and wide. This means that everybody has to chip in and pay up. That's why you're paying tax 24/7. Everybody works for the tax man in Canada. And that sort of makes life very difficult in many ways that we'll also talk about in other segments. This also means that business is hard. I'm not a businessman, but business is difficult. Just mathematically speaking, if you open up a store in a country that has a population of 80 million, there's just more of a chance that more people will walk into your store compared to a country that has 30-something million. There just isn't as much of the population that is consuming things, so you'll have less people coming to you. This also means that a lot of the services are a lot more expensive compared to the closest neighbor, the United States. I remember reading articles that demonstrated clearly that the people living in Canada pay some of the highest rates of any nation in fees for cell phones and internet, or cable TV, or one of the most expensive things in Canada is insurance. Health insurance. Well, we'll talk about health insurance in another section, but health insurance is in, let's say you're traveling, you need extra health insurance for your, for your family that's coming to visit, and car insurance. Usually the amount of money you pay for car insurance, depending on your age, your neighborhood, where you park your car at night, what you do, all these things affect it. But I remember my car insurance was something on the lines of 260 or 280 Canadian dollars a month. And then I got a speeding ticket, and that went up to 330 something Canadian dollars a month. And I can't give you exact numbers, but I've had relatives who live in the States that pay a fraction of that amount a month. And to them, it's really funny how high the rates of insurance were. Or we would ask our relatives living in the United States, okay, you guys pay this much for your mobile phone and internet. How much internet you get, or how much internet you get in your house? And they're like, what do you mean how much? Our internet is is unlimited. And we're like, oh no, in Canada, unlimited internet is such and such. All I'm trying to say is that having a large country is nice and all, but then that means everything's much more expensive. Business is hard, taxes are high, and insurance is high. It's been 10 minutes. I'm not going to go on longer. I will continue the rest of it in other episodes. So stay tuned, and if you have any other questions, any comments, any other personal experiences you've had that agree with mine or disagree with mine, please go ahead and comment, and we'll have conversations about those later. Okay? I hope you enjoy your day or night, wherever you may be. Bye-bye.